Welcome all. Just a friendly reminder that Bottom Bash 2021 is about to be executed. Get ready to hit your enter keys 1, 2, 3. Coming this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Further information, please hit the FB Robbie Tech website. It's our official sister site available on FBorg. And yeah, hope to see you there, guys. Let's go. Land 2021. Land the fuck away. And here we go.
Welcome all. Welcome back to the Techness Corner. My name is Seb Luca, your host for this evening or morning, afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. And thank you for joining us. Depending on why you're here, we're actually making two videos in one today, in quick unison and in not only succession, but in literally unison with each other. One needs to help the other, and pending your reasons, I thank you for joining us. Today, my system to my left, X217 to be precise, is getting an upgrade, and we'll get a closer look at X in a second. X is a mishmash of conceptual ideas over a period of time, so don't judge X. He's a go-getter and a workhorse. At the same time, M888 is our storage device to our right. And before we chuck footage over to M and other things of that nature, any other larger files in general, X is the go-to when it comes to that. And currently, he's lacking in a little bit of girth, pardon the pun. So what we're doing today, if you've arrived for this reason, again, I welcome you. We are adding a couple of Western Digital 1 terabyte SSDs for added storage capacity. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Very simply, probably the conceptual idea, probably the idea of installing these isn't as daunting as the other reason why you're here, and that's setting them up in a RAID 0 fashion so as to be able to combine both drives into one fuller, larger, and again, pardon the pun, in X's case, girthier storage disk. RAID 0, on the other hand, does allow for some additional risk to occur, so you have to understand that. As a result of combining both drives, if one drive fails, then you will lose everything on both drives because they work in unison with each other, and files get broken up and pass through into both for storage. So if half the storage is gone, you can't recover the other half. Done with. But with that said, I've got a different frame of mind. If I have one full drive and it fails, in this case, with a 50-50 chance, one drive fails, it's all gone anyway. So in this case, one drive fails, it's all gone anyway. So it's the same thing for me. These Western Digitals aren't too bad. I've got a couple of Samsung 860 EVOs in there currently in X. They're only 500 gigabytes and they're set up in a RAID 0 fashion as well, and I've had no troubles. These have a 5-year warranty, and essentially the burden on the drive should be split in half because of the RAID 0, and they shouldn't be hammered as heavily in theory as if utilizing one single drive the whole time. On the other hand, a benefit of RAID 0 that hopefully we'll be able to document and showcase is potentially a performance increase as well in the sequential read and write speeds at the very least. These Western Digitals have a sequential read and write speed of 560 megabits a second read and 530 megabits a second write. So when it comes to SSDs, they're not slouches whatsoever. They do rival your 860 EVOs. Welcome to the Techness Corner, people. And like I said, my name is Seb Luca, or Sebastian Lucas. I apologize for the haphazard approach. We are making 2 videos in one, and we're going to be doing our mighty best pertaining to this. This is a new concept for me because I am not just going to say, hey, I'm upgrading my rig, come on a journey with us, which is what I probably should do. But instead, I am trying to get you guys to learn 2 things or understand 2 things and not be brought here to just sit and watch the process per se. So let's see if we can get a closer look at X and explain how we're going to tackle our project and our upgrade over the next realistically hour or 2, because in this case currently, it's seriously, no offense to him, is a mess. And speaking of messes, I apologize for the mess. So as we delve in closer, we can see X over here, and don't judge the cable mods. Originally he did have a white motherboard inside, along with all white lighting to an nth degree, or neon lighting, and there was a different graphics card essentially, which is in M currently, M888 over there to my left, the storage computer for the time being. Let us see if we can get in a little bit closer by grabbing this other camera, and we'll get an understanding and a better picture. Or in actual fact, it's probably time. We'll see how the reflection goes for starters, and then we'll work out whether we need to take the lid off and get in there, get nitty gritty straight up into things. We are definitely going to have to take that side panel off, that side glass panel off. So let me grab our tools and let's get started. So this is the H500M Coolermaster case. It's just getting on now in a couple of years, but she's definitely seen me through a couple of upgrades, and probably will see me through another couple as well. X, on the other hand, underneath this cooler over here, has a 10900K, just to elaborate. Nothing special, but they are renowned to run a little toasty. So we've got ourselves what is a Coolermaster, because it's a Coolermaster theme after all, a Coolermaster Sub-Zero Tech, or L Sub-Zero 360 to be not precise, but it's a tech cooler. So it's like a little refrigerator on the CPU essentially. Currently, X is idling at approximately 15 degrees Celsius in a room that is approximately 24 degrees. So that's no mean feat whatsoever for a 10900K, which is subdually overclocked at 5.1 gigahertz on all cores and threads inclusive. We've only got ourselves 32 gigabytes of GDR4 memory. I'm considering taking a bulk amount out of M over there and transplanting it into X. X is essentially our rendering station as well, and Gigabyte Aorus master board that replaced a Vision G that we had. That's why, hence the white Coolermaster again, should I say, cable extensions, but it matched the theme. Oh, there was a white and black sort of a theme, which really then popped everything with the neon lights. The whiteness was really vibrant. Unfortunately, we had to RMA that motherboard, and we got it replaced with the Aorus Master, which was an upgrade but was a downgrade in its own ways and rights. We won't get into that today because it's not the center of attention. What is essentially is, at the moment, the space required to put our SSDs in, and if we have a closer look, we can probably slot them, 2 of them just here and here. Otherwise, there are allocated spots over here and here These two spots I prefer not to utilize because of the routing, the additional routing requirements of the power cable. But if we do have to, in fact, because I can't remember, this does have a 1000 watt titanium modular power supply. If we do have to add an extra cable in specifically, then it won't be a problem either way. If there is two connectors on the two connectors which are connecting up the Samsung SSDs here available in sequence, then we'll aim to try to fit those both here so that they all line up, which brings us to one of our first dilemmas, and that's its X's newer GPU or edition, the graphics card, a mild 6700 XT, currently is very, very long for its version and variety, which is the Radeon Sapphire Nitro Plus variant. And the backside of the heat spreader and cooling area of the card actually is flashbang against where the SSDs would have to be located. Unfortunately, it's completely against the backside PCIe brackets as well. It's not like it's already been moved, and that's something that the vertical mount or the universal vertical mount by Coolermaster will allow us to do. We can move it further in if we so desire and center it if we like, but what it will do is lift it up so that there is space there for those SSDs to be placed either there and have it lifted up off the ground or off the base here as well. So the option will be, if I so desire, to install one or both here as well. So to cut a long story short, we are going to take our GPU, vertically mount it, try to position it in a manner of placing where also hopefully the top side doesn't clash with the tech. Tech-wise, on a standardized form factor, it shouldn't be an issue. If I was to hypothetically have, say, a Noctua cooler of some sort, it would be further down so that this USB connection to the tech shouldn't in theory be too low that the GPU will have a problem. We will have the GPU sitting flashbang down below, but as a 6700 XT, this is one of the larger varieties and versions of it. The cooling on the side note by Sapphire is immaculate, providing you go through and set the fan profiles and adjust them accordingly. Because on a side note, I believe some work perhaps needs to be done on the AMD side of things, and I use a custom fan profile. What annoys me on a side note is the fact that the adjusting the fan profile is technically classified as overclocking in the eyes of AMD, which is really weird, frankly. It's one of those things that, you can't really go wrong with it, just because of the fact that what I'm not used to and don't like is a non-active and or assertive fan profile where it allows the GPU to pretty much bake until about 50 odd degrees before the fans kicking. So they're silent, no spin fans. For me, that means that hotspot's already in above the 60 degrees, and that's something I want to mitigate from it being the case. I prefer not to get to those temperatures rather than to get to those temperatures in essence before cooling starts to kick in, if you get my drift. On a side note, speaking of fans and cooling, these Sapphire Nitro Pluses on the 6700 XT are actually replaceable, which is really nice, and we'll get a better look at them once we are vertically mounted and we have space for our SSDs, obviously. It's an extremely tight fit in this outfit, so I apologize for the lack of space as I try to dissect myself through this. Just a little tip for you all, also when disconnecting all your wiring, if you're prone to having it fall behind a desk and get really annoyed about having to try to reach behind and find everything again, just get an elastic band. and tie them all up, which is what I'm about to do. Bring out X into the spotlight, and we'll start working on what you guys will see will seem like a really neat cable management job at first glance, but you'll understand it's a nightmare. We'll have to assess whether we need to get that additional cable, we need to get that modular power supply out to power these two, or whether there is one from memory that has a couple extra 2 connections where if we position those, we should be able to get 4 SSDs on that far right side of the case. If not, and or if we have to pop them underneath the GPU on the left side above the PSU shroud, then definitely we will need to get an additional case, additional cable, and that's where the nightmare may or may not begin. You guys will get a better look in a jiffy's time. So the Coolermaster vertical mount, universal. Hopefully there isn't too many dramas installing this. I don't believe there will be. I think the issue will be rerouting and redoing a lot of the cable management that is involved in getting the SSDs in the case without the least amount of excess showing, and tidying it all up and putting it back together again. So you guys will get a better look at that in a moment's time. I'll tell you what, the rubber stoppers on him are immaculate. Great job, Coolermaster. trying to drag that along the bench to get a better grip before you manage to lift him. Oh, I swear, even Jay from J2 Sense, who's probably a foot taller than I am, would struggle to push that forward. So power supply's off, everything's disconnected. We've got a couple of the bits and pieces topside which we haven't disconnected, and hopefully we will not break in the process of installation, such as dongles, antennae and whatnot. We're concentrating on the bottom half. All the PCIe slots will have to be excavated just to confirm. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 required. I'll have to be conscientious of everything as we move along, of course. So first things first, I think we will just remove the back panel. Very tight. So as you guys can see, routing wise, I'll get some more light in here, frankly. That should be a little better. It's darkness as darkness can be. There's no dust in this part here. But as you can see, there's a shroud here covering this section. I'll try not to scratch it up. There's a shroud here covering this section, which opens up like that. That pops on like so. There's a shroud here which is screwed on. There's a couple of hubs controlling a lot of stuff and rerouting some stuff from back and forward, and adding additional USB ports that the motherboard lacks in that regards. Fan controllers, and the way everything's routed, you can barely see any cables. Okay, there's a cable snuck up to the side over here going to the CPU per se. Problem is getting an additional cable in there and having to route it through here. It is so tight that was, you could tell when I was pulling off the glass cabinet that I can't physically, unless we get flat cables, I'm going to struggle to work out how to put an extra cable in there. And you guys will see that this is good cable management. Bringing us to an unboxing video time, people. What's in the box? In the box today, we've got our Western Digital blue solid state drive, 1 terabyte, 3D NAND. We'll open them up from the bottom side like so. Thank you, Western Digital. So they give you what is a user manual that is actually a sticker, which is really cool because you can roll that on itself, if you get my drift, and then you can stick it down. But realistically speaking, we want a sort of semi-perma job. I've already had this part over here come out ever so slightly and cause a malfunction with the cooler. So remove before installing. User manual as well, technical support and limited warranty guide extended to the, and there we're left with our Western Digital Blue, which, as you can see, the obsolete or slash lack of visibility of the Samsungs is something that if we pop this in that spot, it's still going to be truly visible. Sorry, what? I said the cable, the copper on the inside, you need to flex it a little bit to loosen shit up. It's good gauge. The girth of the wires, perfect. So we're back, y'all, a little bit sweatier. If you've lasted this long, you may as well hit that like and subscribe button. It is greatly appreciated from everyone at the Techness Corner, which is myself, frankly, Seb Luca, or otherwise known as Sebastian Lucas, and I thank you, very, very grateful. So smash that like button, and it's time now to see whether one, how X217 fires up with his new GPU mount vertically challenge accepted and hopefully complete, and two, show you guys, if you're here on the other hand, for part 2 progress on X217, which is installing a couple of SSDs, 1 terabyte in this case, from Western Digital, and show you guys how to set up a RAID 0 once we know that everything's functioning well with the system after pretty much reconnecting everything all over again. So let's go. Okay, so the best view I can essentially get is going to be a reflection of oneself. We will to operating light to the motherboard, so that's a good sign. Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's go, people. Cross our fingers. And it should cycle through a start, and looks like there it is. I might actually, in fact, on first glance, consider moving it forward ever so slightly to allow for more of that RGB on the back of it to be shown in all his glory. So there it is, y'all, with a vertical mount. Change the colors up a little bit. Definitely will pop a little more. I'm probably thinking some sort of bottom side RGB, but realistically, the strict software allows you for customization, further customization, which we have to get around to doing. Supposedly the only problem was in the last update required a fix with RGB Fusion 2.0, which is the gigabyte RGB software. So ironically, I'm waiting for that fix. I don't know if it's come through or not. While everything works fine, I don't worry too much about some colors and that. But firmly speaking, GPU temps on idle from the get-go are hovering around 28 degrees. So if we go into main visual, you guys can see over here that our 28 degrees, generally speaking, that's around 31, 32 or 33, even when it's coldish. And under a load that we'll put it under sooner rather than later, I always have it stabilize and get to a set point, which is approximately 51, 52 to 54. So the question will be whether it'll hit that mark or not once we put it under that load. So guys, that's been the journey with the Coolermaster vertical GPU mount. Essentially, it's a very easy process, especially installing at the beginning of a build cycle. If you've already got a lot, if you're planning on doing it after the fact, understand there might be a bit more tinkering, because essentially you have to go through everything twice anyway, like you would at the beginning, and make sure that you haven't disconnected anything, depending on if you have to add additional cabling or whatnot. We in our case had to add cabling for the SSDs that we're about to show how to set up in RAID 0 fashion. So stick around, which shows you how to set up a couple of SSDs in your case if you need some additional storage, and combine them into a RAID 0 RAID array for one large capacity disk essentially, and perhaps, cross our fingers, some performance boosts as well. So welcome back all, my name is Seb Luca and welcome back to the Techness Corner. So it was a bit of an ordeal. It's not generally the trickiest thing if you've got plenty of space in your case, if you've got good cable management, and there isn't too much RGB and argy-bargy to worry about pertaining to setting things up, as well as you're not doing any additional hardware installation, in this case the GPU vertical mount. Then installing a couple of SSDs as shown is just pretty much plug and play pertaining to your spare SATA ports which are available. Make sure they're not being utilized pertaining to any bandwidth restrictions between any NVMe ports. So sometimes your 5 and 6 slot SATA ports may share the same bandwidth as a NVMe slot, and if you've got that NVMe occupied, you may not be able to use those 5 and 6 slot SATA ports as effectively. Something to consider. But now that we've got the SSDs inside the computer, let's show the way of activating them and setting up a RAID 0, which is essentially striped in Windows. In Windows, we're not doing a bootable drive or anything. It's not going to run the operating system. We're just going to activate these drives and pretty much just join them together into a 2 terabyte drive. So, first things first, I'm traveling blind at exactly the same time as you all are. We've got a few other programs open, but you're going to right click in Windows 10, if this is Windows 10 Pro, right click the Windows icon, go into disk management. Now upon entering, what we have and what you would have is also 2 unallocated disks, disk 4 in this case and disk 5, which are both terabyte drives. So what we are going to do is we are going to do a new striped volume in this case to connect these. Okay, otherwise you just do a new simple volume. Okay, so stripe volume is what we are choosing today. Okay, hit next, then it'll give you options of others to add. So you want to add disk 5 as well, add that. So now you got disk 4 and disk 5 selected. You can choose the space and whatnot, but just leave it on default. It will maximize the amount of space it will combine them into, which is the full amount. Hit next. Assign the following drive a letter. I will just leave it as F. Next, we will format this volume with the following settings, and you can leave it at allocation unit size on default for the time being. Volume label, we'll call it something sexy. So SSD WD WD 2 TB, just to remember. And we'll perform a quick format and we'll hit next and then just finished. For your operation, each selector will convert the selected basic disk to a dynamic disk. If you convert the disk to dynamic, you will not be able to start installed operating systems from any volume on the disk, and that's fine. So they won't become boot drives. Are you sure you want to continue? Yes, because we want to combine them into a striped drive together, these 2 unallocated drives that we're doing. So we'll hit yes, and we'll give it a second to do its thing. And then bang, we got F and F. Now, here it says healthy and healthy dynamic drives, okay? But it doesn't show you them essentially together per se. But if we then close that and we go into our file manager, this PC, now we have drive F, which is our SSD WD2TB. And it's not a full 2 terabytes, just like with any drive, you never get the full amount. It's 1.81 terabytes. But that we can now utilize normally, along with our other drives. So we've got an extra 2 terabytes of space combined. So if you've only got, say for example, if you've only got enough for 1 terabyte 1 week and then the following week another terabyte, this way you can combine it up and essentially have a 2 terabyte drive. Also, what we'll do is to see that everything's running correctly. I've got a 2 terabyte drive here, which is your 860 Pros, your Evo Samsungs from yesteryear, not your 870s, but your 860s. And what we'll do is we'll go into Crystal Disk Mark 7 and we'll choose that applicable drive per se, and that's drive E. It is a little full. We'll do a general test, which is everything on default. Okay, so we'll hit all and we'll let that run through. I expect scores of a set amount, so if they're not there, I'll be reflective, and then we'll test our new 2 terabyte drive and see how it matches up. So remember that the 560 Evos generally have a read and write speed of the same as the Western Digitals, 550 sequential reads and 530 writes or thereabouts. Now, as you can see, our read speed, sequentially speaking, is pretty much double that factor at 1107, and I expect our writes not to tank that much further down as well. So it's a solid drive, and if you agree, sequentially speaking, the performance gains are worth it, then it's something definitely you should consider regarding striping your drives, providing that you're happy with the risk of, if one drive failing, you losing all data on both drives. We'll just let this go through essentially, and we'll see the next couple of scores on the rights, and then we'll try our Western Digitals and see how they are behaving. Excellent. So it will stabilize. On our rights, we're at 1045, exactly where we should be, exactly where I was expecting. And what I'm hoping is that the Western Digitals, they aren't your 860s, they're not your 870 Samsungs, but Samsung, regarding some of their drive characteristics, have sort of dropped the ball a little bit regarding their newer drives. That's why I went with the Western Digitals. That's why I went with what is called a 3D NAND flash, which I wanted associated with the drive, and I'm hoping with those 2 terabyte drives we get similar results to what we are receiving here with these two 500 gig 860 EVOs as well. Okay, so that pretty much finalizes the test. This score here is a little low. We'll double check how the Western Digitals go. Understand sometimes you have to do these tests 1 or 2 or 3 times. There may be background tasks running in the background. Make sure there isn't anything. Make sure that the drive isn't being utilized for any specific reason. What I'm going to do is I am going to screen snip these results just very quickly, and we shall add them to the pile of a few which I've got running. Make 3D. Just recently I've been recording a few of my drives. As you can see, there's a drive down here that was 1.3 terabytes or 1.5 terabytes and was close to 10 gigabits a second, sequentially speaking, read and write speeds. So this one's on par with what it was before, pretty much identical to the letter, so very stable drive. We'll close that, save that, close that, and what we'll do is we'll grab Crystal Disk Mark 7. I shall copy it, take it over because I like to utilize it off the drive itself. Open it up. This marks 64 for 64-bit Windows 10 Pro, and choose the right drive, and again on default same settings, and let's see what we get, guys. Cross our fingers it's a decent score, or at the very least something similar. So I have to admit it is slightly lower. I believe the 860s can read at 560, not the 550. So at the 550 we are doing rather brilliantly, considering they're about, give or take, margin of error. Second score decent, third score hopefully around close to the 700 mark, and we should be pretty much CUDA. It should indicate what our read speeds are. 4K will be a little bit debatable, but our write speeds on the other hand. And this, in theory, if you are interested in RAID 0 and or RAID arrays, generally regarding this configuration, if you use the same drives of the same caliber and same size, you will proportionally increase the size of your drive. So if you use a 750 gigabyte drive and you use a terabyte drive, then you will only have 1.5 terabytes combined. It's the size of the smallest amount that will dictate what size the drive will become. Okay. But if you have 2 terabyte drives, or if you have 3 terabyte drives, it will then in turn turn it into a 2 terabyte drive or a 3 terabyte drive, and performance should in theory be increased substantially, again a third, a fourth, a fifth time, a sixth time doing it in this manner of speaking. Understand that for redundancy's sake and the fact that at any stage any of those drives fail, you will lose everything on the whole combined drive you have created. So that's something to consider. It's something to realize if you need to protect that data, it's probably not the drive to keep that data on for long. But a cheaper way of making a massive game drive that is effective in that regards and quick enough is something to consider as well. And or, you know, a cheap scratch drive of some sort, because the 4K writes, on the other hand, I believe will be hopefully closer to 100. So they're not too shabby as well, frankly. And sequentially speaking, we're cooler as, aren't we? So I can't complain. So we'll let this finish up, guys. That's about it there, to be brutally honest. As the test finishes up, guys, I hope you got something out of this. We just today installed a vertical GPU mount for our 6700 XT. We've got some better cooling substantially. It's just now toggling between 29 and 30 degrees on the ambient. Usually it's about 31 to 33. So that's something to consider. The weather has dropped a little bit in this room. I'm not sweating as much as I did before. The evening has begun, but it usually toggles at least 31 to 32, 33. So on idle. On the other hand, CPU temps aren't rising from the 11-12, so I'm very happy about that. It seems like the exhaust and the way that GPU is excavating its heat is going more so out the back now. And the CPU, on the other hand, for a 10900K is coodeliciously freezing. We've got almost 100 on the 4K read and write, 653 on the write above that. So again, not a score to cry home foul about. I'll, for my personal sake, get a screen snip of that and pop that away. And if you got something out of this today, guys, if you had all enjoyed it, found it interesting, informative in some manner, learned something along the way, then my name is Seb Luca. Thank you for joining the Techness Corner. And please hit that like and or subscribe button on your way out for more content like this. I appreciate it immensely. And from the Techness Corner, thank you. Peace. The machines have won. This is John Corner signing out. What are you doing? What are you guys doing? Looking at the lady in red, of course.